Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 31st December 2023. My name is T.S.V. Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan, 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 Hari Bol, TRSV, Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been trying to discuss and analyze about the topics that we have gleaned as a knowledge through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been trying to do in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. So let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. In the past few videos, we have been trying to discuss and analyze about one very important topic that is mentioned time and again in the psyche of a life of a person in this material world, whether that person is a human, a living entity of the male nature or of the female nature. This particular topic is known as mind. Mind is a very important topic or an instrument that forms part of the complete human living entity, whether male or female. In fact, according to Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the main segment of the Hindu epic Mahabharata, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, mentions and describes to Arjuna, the Pandava prince, the importance of mind in the psyche and life of every human living entity. According to Lord Krishna, This human living entity made up of four layers of material body is just like a chariot. These four layers that make up this human body and human living entity's chariot are the causal body of intelligence and logic, the astral body of mind, feelings and emotions, the etheric body of senses being five in number, that is, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, and finally, the outer shell of the gross body made up of four natural elements, namely air, fire, water, and earth. In this, the first three layers are made up of the first element of this material world, that is ether. This ether can be felt subconsciously by a human living entity, and its existence may be accepted by an evolved human living entity. However, his or her gross body does not permit the right to see this particular ether with naked eyes of the gross body. After making up these three subtle bodies, this ether plays a larger role. Of the four elements that make up this gross body, the first element, called air, emanates out of this very ether. The second element, fire, emanates out of this very air. The third element, water, emanates out of this very fire. And the fourth element, being earth, emanates out of this third element, water, which is the third and most important ingredient in the making of this gross body. In other words, directly or indirectly, ether is responsible for the existence of air, fire, water, and earth. Of these, air, just like ether, can be felt by the gross body but cannot be seen by the naked eyes of this gross body. On the other hand, fire, water, and earth can both be seen and felt by the naked eyes of the gross body. Now, this chariot called human living entity, whether male or female, has been described in detail. This particular chariot is driven by five white horses. These five horses are known as etheric senses. In other words, the five senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch comprise of these five different horses. Because each horse answers to a different sense, so every horse runs in a different direction. Nobody can control these horses which are driving this chariot without concentrating on a particular focus or bull's eye. To control these five senses, you need a driver. This driver expertly holds the reins of these five horses running in different directions. This particular driver is known as intelligence. There is only one passenger in that chariot. This passenger who is sitting in the back seat of the chariot is none other than the raw, pure, unevolved spirit soul, the individual spirit soul of every human living entity is considered to be the passenger of this chariot. Now, this spirit soul is in the helpless hands of this intelligence, which is the driver of this chariot and who is holding the reins of these five senses or white horses running in different directions. This hapless, raw, unevolved spirit soul has to enjoy or suffer according to where these five horses driven by the intelligence take him or that passenger called individual spirit soul. However, that there is one very important element in this chariot. This is the element that we are trying to discuss through our various videos. This particular element is the main element instrument driving this chariot. It is known as mind. Before we conclude this topic, let me hasten to add that the mind that we are talking about is certainly different from the astral body of mind just because the mind that we are talking about includes the vibrations from the causal body of intelligence, the astral body of mind, and the etheric body of senses, all together collectively make up this mind that we are talking in our various videos. The reason for this instrument being called mind is, I think, a little clear. On the top are two elements: the individual spirit soul and the causal body of intelligence. In the bottom, there are two layers: etheric body of senses and the gross body made up of four elements, namely air, fire, water, and earth. Between these two pairs of layers and elements lies the astral body of mind. In other words, it is at the center of the complete human living entity, and hence the instrument that drives this chariot is known as mind. Just like any vehicle or a mechanical machinery needs an engine to drive that vehicle or machinery. Similarly, this chariot called human living entity, whether male or female, needs that particular mind to drive it and to thrive in a lifetime in this material world. Just like without the engine, the vehicle or the machinery has only scrap value. Similarly, this chariot called the human living entity has only scrap value when the mind of that particular living entity is missing. We all need a glue or a catalyst to join every subtle body, gross body, and the spirit soul together to make up this complete chariot called human living entity. This glue or catalyst is called ego. Ego is of three types. The first one is called false ego. Almost 99% of living entities, sometimes knowingly or unknowingly, identify themselves with this body of four layers. When a living entity identifies himself or herself inadvertently or advertently as this body, then that type of ego is known as false ego. However, a select few who are evolved enough realize that they are not this body of four layers of the material kind, but the original spirit soul. This they will have to do knowingly. When they do this and identify only with that individual spirit soul, that ego is known as the real ego. On the other hand, some very rare living entities realize that they are only a part and parcel of the spirit soul. They are just spirit sparks. Enjoy this ego, which is known as superego. In other words, in superego, a living entity, whether male or female, realizes that he or she does not have an individual identity, but that he or she, as a soul, is only a part of the spirit whole, and he or she is nothing but a spirit spark. This is called superego. Very many saints, monks, rishis, maharishis exalted human living entities, evangelists, preachers, etc., who are cerebrally very spiritually evolved, realize this type of ego. Those who belong to the category who realize their identity as an individual spirit soul are not inferior to these, but they are certainly below this category. Here, I would like to remind you that there are a mass of living entities thriving in a lifetime in this material world. Every living entity has his or her individual spirit soul, the complete package of the individual spirit soul and the four layers of material body makes one living entity, whether male or female. Just because there are a collection of so many living entities, every one of them is equipped with one engine called mind, which is the main driving instrument of that particular living entity. This mind, which is subtle in nature, is the main repository of vibrations that emanate out of the causal body of intelligence, the astral body of mind, and the etheric body of senses. All these vibrations reach this mind, which is the repository of all these vibrations. This subtle mind has one counterpart, which is gross and which becomes the part and parcel of the gross body of that living entity. This counterpart is a mass of tissue called brain, which is safely embedded into the skull of that gross body. When the vibrations from the three subtle bodies reaches this mind after some initial processing. This subtle mind transmits the same vibrations to that mass of tissue called brain of that gross body. Here the things slightly differ. Once these processed or initially processed vibrations from the mind reach this brain, it takes up its job of bifurcating these vibrations seriously. It divides these vibrations in three parts: one of causal intelligence, second of astral mind, and third of etheric senses. According to the destiny, karma, age, maturity, experience, education, birth, surroundings, atmosphere, peer pressure, choices and preferences, tastes, whims, and fantasies of every individual a living entity. These vibrations are selected as a quality or quantity to be processed and a juice extracted out of these processed and selected vibrations, and this juice is percolated down the gross body of that particular living entity. This living entity and his or her gross body acts according to the juice thus percolated down that gross body. This goes on and on with every living entity, whether male or female, in this society in a particular given lifetime. That is precisely the reason why there is such a variety and multifarious activity in this society, in this material world during a lifetime. These vibrations going to various living entities make them react according to the juice percolated by their own brain into their own gross body. We have been trying to discuss several case histories to analyze this matter better. In that process, we were discussing about one particular character called Genghis Khan. Here I would like to add that we have to analyze this mind while talking about this subject and try to find out how or why the mind of a human living entity acts according to what it does, thus giving a coloring to this material world. This is all I wanted to speak in this particular video. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular subject. Please give me your own expert views, thoughts, ideas, and opinions so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.